Welcome to the second summit for PD Reimagined. I'm so excited to see you guys. My name is Nadine Levitt, for those that don't know who I am. First and foremost, I wanted to thank all the people who gave us feedback. It was super helpful to receive your feedback because our aim with the program obviously is to celebrate, honor, and inspire you. And we're not actually psychic, so it's better not to guess what exactly you need. So when you guys can tell us anything that you need, how we can support you, it may seem out of the box, but I promise you it's a lot of things are pretty easy for us to get done, or at least to partner up with other people to help. So please, nothing is sort of too much or too out of the way. Just let us know how we can support you and make your life a little bit better. I should have done this in the first summit, but we had a bit of a technical snafu, so I completely passed through this. So I wanted to circle back because it is really important. And I think that based on some of the feedback, some people were a little bit, maybe didn't know exactly what PD Reimagine, what they've really signed up for here. So I wanted to sort of clarify some things. So PD Reimagined is definitely unlike any professional development that you've probably had before. And I think a big part of that is because our focus is not on classroom strategies. There's enough things teaching you about how to, classroom strategies or the science of learning and things like that. No, this is much more a holistic perspective, because before you are an educator or a school leader or a counselor or anything else, you're actually a human being, and a human being with needs. And so this really is about refueling you. And we do this because we understand the crucial role that you guys play in student success, and obviously our future thinkers and innovation. That's why I care so much about it. In fact, the number one predictor of a student's success is their teacher. And your outlook, including mental health and wellness and job satisfaction, absolutely impact your performance and therefore student outcomes. So think of it as really just energy at the end of the day, and we can either be influenced by the energy around us in our environments, or we can be the influencer. So we want to give you guys all the tools that you need in order to be the influencers rather than being sort of reactive in the chaos. Here's what to expect. So the first piece of this is the inspiration boxes, and you either get that digitally if you signed up for the digital package or physically. And that's really where the storytelling starts. It is the introduction to the theme. We give hints as to who our speaker is going to be. So it's kind of fun for you guys to try and figure out who that might be. And then there's the summits. And in the summits, we have this quick intro by me. Hopefully that's only going to take 5 or 6 minutes every time. Then we have most of the time with our special guests, so 30 minutes for them to tell their story. And then we have at least 5 to 10 minutes where you guys can ask some questions. So as our guests are talking, do think about anything that you would like to know from them. And then we have some breakouts, and in the breakouts, we do want to leave a little bit more time so that everyone has a chance to share. And the idea here really is to reflect on what you just heard and think about what the big aha moment is, and then collectively come up with some strategies that you could use in your real life that might be helpful to you. And then we're going to share all of that back on Padlet. We've actually been sharing underneath the summits in our dashboard the Padlets as well. So just make sure you go check that out. Sharing, of course, is not only just good for you, but it's also good for all the other people in our community. You never know when something you say actually sparks a thought in somebody else and helps them in their daily life. So please make sure that you do share. I won't spend too much time on this because most of you probably know the dashboard. This is the dashboard. This is your home for everything. This is where you can access past summits and past recordings and past Padlets. The community piece here is where you can write comments and share funny jokes or anything that you think that the community is going to like. Horoscopes would be nice if anyone is an astrologer as well on the side. This is where you complete your commitments, and definitely check out our discounts because we've got about 170 companies so far that have offered discounts and special experiences for you guys, honoring you and celebrating you. And that's going to continue to grow, and we're going to have different ones that we feature. So definitely leverage those if you can. So before we really get started, I just wanted to give a little time for this giveaway. So Dawn Levy Group has offered us this $700 almost coat as a giveaway. And you guys all opted in for this with your commitments. And the only rule is that somebody here that's actually here. You have to be here in order to claim it. So Andy, I'm going to ask you to pull a name out of the hat, and fingers crossed it's going to be somebody who's actually here today. And by the way, you get to change you get to decide on the color and the size of this coat.
And the winner is Lori Guyon.
Amazing! I love that! Yay! Is Lori here? Oh, please let her be here.
Yes, she is.
Oh,
I'm
fantastic!
here. I'm totally here.
Oh, hi, Lori. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. What a nice way to. I have a cold, so this is like a nice treat to
Perfect.
wake up for not feeling well.
So you need a warm coat. That's fabulous.
I do, absolutely. Yeah, I live in upstate New York, so we're about to get hit with 4 feet of snow, so definitely can put it to use.
Amazing. Okay, good. I'm so happy. Good. All right. And so we're going to be doing that every summit. We're going to be doing different giveaways. So do make sure you complete those commitments so that you can also be up for the giveaways each time. Last summit, we were talking about taking time for you, even when the show must go on. We talked to Casey Patterson about energy in and energy out. There were some really great strategies, especially around worries and leaving worries behind, that you should check out on the Padlet. This summit, we're going to be talking about holding on when 8 seconds seems impossible. So 8 seconds doesn't seem like anything's impossible, but in fact, when you're riding a bull or something, it probably is very impossible. So what does this mean? We're going to explore holding on actually requires a lot more than just physical strength in terms of holding on physically. There's the emotional, mental, and also the spiritual states that definitely influence outcomes. We're also going to explore fear and our relationship with fear and how that can help or hinder us. And then how to optimize our refuels. We only have a really short amount of time usually as educators to refuel ourselves. How do we optimize that? Those are the things that we're going to be talking about. A quote of the month. This is a good one by John Wayne. Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. So I love that. It's kind of moving through fear. I say something similar, which is feel the fear and do it anyway. Somebody, I don't know who made that up. It wasn't me, but that's something that I live by. Time for Guess the Guest. So in your box, you got some items that were clues. So what do cowboys, race cars, everything hurts bomb, ghost pepper salt, and Music City pasta have in common? Well, we have a couple other clues, and this is this person knows a thing or two about bull riding, has built fan bases in over 85 countries, if not way more than that probably by now, lives in Nashville, Tennessee, has built and led massive brands across different sectors, and loves country music. Actually loves good people too, so I'm sure this person's going to love you guys. Andy, let's not leave them waiting any longer. Let's introduce our guest.
8 seconds. Fleeting for some, a lifetime for others. For a chosen few, it will be the time of their life. Two opponents, David and Goliath, hell-bent on doing whatever it takes.
welcome, Randy Bernard, my dear friend and fabulous human being. So I met Randy, and soon thereafter started going to a lot of these bull riding events. And as I was going to them, was thinking to myself, like, this is insanity. Like, it's actually insanity. They're so near death, and it's such an unbelievable sport. So I'm so happy to introduce Randy.
Well, thank you. First, congratulations, Lori, on that new jacket.
Exactly. So we are talking a little bit about the sort of the different influences. You know, bull riding obviously is very physically grueling, but there's a lot of other things that go into it, right? So the most successful riders, what are the other things that the other influences there?
Well, I think you have to first realize that out of every ride that a cowboy takes, 1 out of every 14 rides, there's an injury. So you know that you're getting on an animal that weighs 1,800 pounds that is eventually going to hurt you at least 4 to 5 times out of the year. So that's the first. The second big factor is that you're going to get bucked off between 60 and 75% of your bulls. So failure is something that you have to be able to live with and be able to just dust yourself off, get back up and ride again. So I think those are the two biggest overwhelming factors in bull riding that make great bull riders. And I think it's been really interesting to me to see how the greats, how they compartmentalize their life, and it's like this in every. I would be willing to bet you in every great sport or every great athlete, they all do this on how they deal with their personal life and how they deal with their work, and they always have their personal life in order. It seems the greats and really focus on making that a priority.
That's interesting. So if the personal life is falling apart, then they can't help but bring it on the bull, kind of thing. Is that kind of what
they just? We own a team this year. There was a team concept, and a couple of our riders, when they were having personal issues, it does not materialize greatly when they're riding bulls. It's a factor that they don't deal with very well. And I find that in every, almost like all my friends are based, I mean, Wayne Gretzky is a great friend. I have so many great, amazing athletes. Those greats always have their life in order, not just their family, their life. And I think that that's what we see in the great bull rider.
I think that kind of leans to the fact that there's this, emotional influence or like mental influence as well, right? Like if everything is feeling kind of a mess,
yeah,
it's gonna, it happened kind of to Tiger Woods, I guess, too, right? When his life was falling apart, like personally, then his game also started suffering, and so hopefully the same won't be true of Tom Brady. Let's fingers crossed.
Yeah, I feel bad for Tom.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you were definitely somebody, though, in your career that made a point of making two people the stars and sort of bringing the bulls into the picture, right? The bulls were really, before, I think, PBR, I think the bulls were sort of they weren't really stars. But I think you were like, no, this is David and Goliath. They are very much the star. And you started selling merchandise and all sorts of things and really making a point to make the animals, it's a 2-person event. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, we did some focus groups, and we did some focus groups in New York City, in Dallas, Texas, and some small little rural cities across America. And we were blown away. We thought that when we broke it down, what men liked and what women liked, the men liked the mano, the wrecks, the great rides. And we thought, well, the women would like pretty much the same thing. When our research came back, it was overwhelmingly women loved the bulls. And we're like, really? Like we were shocked, like how much? And so we thought, well, they're the buying power. So we looked at this and said, we need to go back into our sport and really try to humanize our bulls, is how we said it, and really start trying to develop the bulls into stars. And when we did, our bull merchandise started outselling our cowboy merchandise 4-1. Yeah. And the bulls become bigger than the cowboys. And it was really fun to see. And I think what it did for us, it was, we took our demographics, we brought, before it was 60% male, 40% female. When we made a couple changes, it was 50-50. And that's when we started blowing up. I mean, in 1994, we had 14 events, and by 2008, we had 325 events in 5 different countries. So I'm pretty proud of what we were able to do in such a short time.
It's amazing. Can we backtrack a little bit and talk about your life a little bit, like how you got to there? Because you were a 28-year-old CEO, right? So how did you get there?
Well, I right out of college, I did my internship at the Calgary Stampede. I think my internship was the most important part of my entire education, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do that was going to shape my life or where I wanted to go. And I fell in love with it, and it became my passion. And I just the Western lifestyle entertainment. After doing the Calgary Stampede, I came back and ran a little fair in California. Fell in love with that. And then these bull riders said, "Hey, we're trying to create this sport called professional bull riding. Would you like to come over and help us get it started?" And they didn't have any money. There was 16 cowboys. They all put $1,000 each up. 3 of them had to borrow the money. They were so broke. And on our 15th, we kept the company 15 years. And on our 15th year, we sold it on the exact day that we started it, 15 years later. And we sold 65% of it for $100 million. And my favorite day of my entire life was being able to call some of these guys up and say, "I've got good news and bad news." And they say, "What's the bad news?" I said, "I sold the PBR." And they were thinking that, are we going to get a couple 100,000? And I'm like, no, each one of you are going to walk with 4.2 million after tax. And I never seen a bull rider cry. And I called 5 or 6 of the guys, and we broke it up between 3 of us. And every one of them was so emotional. It just changed everyone's lives. And it was probably the most special day of my life, to call someone up and tell them that they were going to be a millionaire. And
that's amazing.
They didn't set out to be millionaires. They set out to make the sport good. I mean, it was all about passion and our love for the sport and on how we can change it. We never wanted to take a profit. We wanted to put it back in the Cowboys' pockets. So, it was kind of like the cherry on top we didn't expect. And it was the most fun 15 years of my life, but the most trying and stressful as well.
Okay. Yeah. I can imagine. So speaking of stressful, right? It's fear, where you talked about failure earlier, about the rider's failure, but often, fear of failure, your failure might mean death of somebody, not even your death, but like somebody else's death. Right. I could understand that you would have a fear of failure. Like, did that ever enter your mind, or were you always just sort of logical about it?
Oh no, fear of failure was definitely, especially right after we bought the television rights, and we spent about $6 million that we didn't really have to spend, and it was more the failure. What the scariest part of failure to me was I had about 70 staff at the time. And I just couldn't imagine sending everyone home and saying, that's the thing that kept coming back. And there would be nights that I would get up and I'd be throwing up in the middle of the night. I just would be sick to my stomach, not knowing how we were going to make this thing work. And it did. But I think the biggest lesson I learned throughout that, when I left PBR, I said, that's not good for my health, and it's not it was unproductive for the company for me to get so wound up. And so I really just had to focus on doing the job the best I could, working the hardest I could, and letting, God take care of the rest. And I mean, my family if there's one value they put in me is work as hard as there's always going to be someone tougher, always someone smarter. But if you can be the hardest worker, there's no doubt. And that's what we did. And I mean, we worked 20-hour days sometimes, and it was just something that I had an amazing staff. We all were there together. It wasn't just me. So it was, that was probably the biggest thing about fear for me is how I learned to deal with it.
Do you think that the adrenaline had something to do with it too? I mean, like I've been to the events and I know, like I walked away with them with just like you're pumped full of adrenaline, right? And at the end of the night, and like, how do you unwind day after day after day? Or does the adrenaline get less because you're so used to it?
The adrenaline, when there's an event, the adrenaline is so strong. You can feel the energy in the air when you walk into a PBR. If you've never been, it's like walking to a Super Bowl because there's so much energy and you just don't know what's going to happen. I guess adrenaline to me was something that we worked so hard. When I did finally go to bed, I eventually learned how to deal with it. But there was a lot of times where we were sleeping 4 hours. Like we by the time you get home from an event, it would be 2 a.m, 1:30 in the morning. And I was always on the first plane out at 6 a.m. So we didn't really have much time to think. We were in the moment, I guess is the best way to say it. So the adrenaline really, it was there constantly, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that definitely contributed to the health piece of it though, because like it's just constantly building up and it just builds up in your body. Right. Was there anything that like listening to music or anything that you felt like you could unwind with, or I don't put you down as a meditator, but
no, now when I did go to IndyCar, I did take up yoga and I learned to that, but no, I really, like I said, when I was on an airplane, we get in the airplane at 6 a.m, we were doing emails. I mean, we were focused, but I've never worked so hard in my life at something. It was definitely, it made me a better person because I tell my kids all the time now, I said, I don't care what you do in life. But the only thing I ask you to do is to do what you love. Don't try to follow money. Don't try to follow someone else's dreams. Follow your dream and what you're passionate about. And if you do, you'll be happy regardless of how you come out materialistically, or it won't be important to you. And that's I live by that. That's a good segue into Indy 500
because you did leave PBR. You stayed a couple years after you sold it, right? And then you chose to leave the PBR. And I know that must have been a really hard decision for you because it is like a family, right? These cowboys, everyone's touring. There's a million events and so on and so forth. Walk me through how you made that decision. What were the things behind it? What was the thinking behind that shift?
Well, I'd been at PBR 15 years and I felt like I was at an age where if I was going to move somewhere, it was time to. And I was just starting. I had a 1-year option to stay at the PBR. And I had told him just a couple of days before, I'm considering opting out and doing something differently. And I didn't know what that was. The next night, a friend of mine calls me and said, the family wants to talk to you to possibly come and consult with the IndyCar and Indy 500. And I told them I'd love to talk to them, not thinking they wanted the CEO. And when after I flew and met with them for a 3-hour meeting, and they called me a couple hours later, I was going to Madison Square Garden to our event, and they said, we'd like you to be our CEO. And the timing was absolutely perfect because I was just considering doing something different. And I knew this was so far outside of my world of expertise that it was either going to make me or break me. But because it put me in another sport that was big around the world in a completely different type of platform. And it was, again, very trying. They had been losing a lot of money. They lost about 30 million a year for 15 straight years. So my job was not only to rebrand and redevelop and reconfigure the sport, but also to make it financially successful.
Mm-hmm. But you've never been in motorsport before, right?
No, I didn't know an Indy car from a F1 car to a NASCAR. I was the worst. Like, I was like reading books as quickly as I could, trying to catch up to learn everything I could. I actually took some engineering classes they let me go into at the local college in Indianapolis and take some classes at night to understand some of the downforce and drafting, and some of the engineers would let me take some of their courses. So I wanted to try to learn as much as I could. And then we had some amazing folks on my staff that helped me catch me up. But it took a couple of years for me to learn. I could tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think moving into something that it's scary. It's taking that leap of faith, right? So what was the experience like in the end? Like, you were there for a couple of years, and like there's some ups and there's some downs, right?
Oh my God, the ups and downs again were just horrendous. And you talk about the fear of death. You don't really think about, you try to make a sport safe, like that sport, where there hadn't been a wreck in that car for over 2 million miles. And then our last race of that car, we had a death. We had Dan Weldon was killed in Las Vegas. And it's probably, I talked about the highest time of my life with those cowboys, but that would have been the lowest time of your life. And when a bull rider is killed on a bull, it's much different, because the cowboy died doing what he was wanted to do. And the families always look at it that way. When there's a death in IndyCar, there's other drivers involved, and no one wants the blame. So the blame comes straight back to me. It's always going to be my fault. And I'd never seen anything like that before. And it was, it was a very difficult 6 months.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sorry. I can only imagine, because with the hate that you get on social media, that's something that's very real. So
first time I had hate mail on social media, actually.
Oh, yeah, of course, because you were like the hero. You were the golden boy in the PBR show, like building it from, it wasn't televised before you. So what was the biggest thing that you learned? So you decided to leave the Indy 500, and what was it that was like your next, like what was in your mind for the next chapter?
The biggest lesson I ever learned out of IndyCar was, don't take a job for the money or to try to build your career. Stay with your passion and your love, because I didn't have a love for cars, and I was out of my element, which made it much more difficult, and I didn't enjoy it as much. And so I swore if I ever got out of IndyCar and was offered any other great opportunities, it would be in that Western lifestyle entertainment space, where it was where my passion was. And so I was very blessed and lucky enough to accept. When I was leaving IndyCar, a gentleman by the name of Garth Brooks called me and said, hey, you have time to come meet me in Las Vegas? I have a show this weekend. And I said, sure. So after we were watching football in his room, and he goes, I'll walk you to your car. And I go, you never walk me to my car. What? And he goes, well, I need to talk to you. And he asked me if I wanted to manage him. And I was so taken back, I turned him down. I'm like, you can find a better manager. I mean, you're the biggest star in the world. There's no way. And he goes, no, I want you. And I turned him down. He offered it to me 2 more times, turned him down again to 2 more times. On the 4th time, I was in Omaha, Nebraska. And he said, listen, I know you're in Omaha. My plane's at the airport. Go get on it. We'll have dinner tonight. I want to talk to you one more time. And I did. And he told me he'd have me home at midnight. And I think I got home 3 days later. I was still in the same clothes, and I had accepted the job. And it's the greatest decision I ever made. He's the most kind, compassionate, amazing person. I lived with him 8 months, and when I moved in with him, I'm like, surely he can't be as nice as he comes across. And he is the nice. He treats Trisha like the queen. And he cries at Purina commercials. That's true. He'd probably kill me for saying that, but that's how he is. He's very emotional, very just a good-hearted person. And I told him, I said I should pay him to work for me because it's so much fun, and it's a lot of work, but we have a great time, and he's a great person.
I see a commonality with PBR a little bit because they were all really good people you're working with. And so it's like, when you surround yourself with good people, there's also this, and I'm blanking on the theory, but there's a theory about job satisfaction that when you feel truly capable, like you are very, very capable at your job, and you're continuing to develop and you're connected with a good group of people, then you tend to have really high job satisfaction. And it's relatable, I think, for all these teachers, because a lot of, especially like special educators, my stepdaughter, who is a special educator, is talking about all the time. There's so many special educators that are leaving the profession, and suddenly educators are having to step in and do the job of these counselors or special educators. And I've spoken to so many teachers that are like in tears from it all, because they're just like, this is not what I know. And it's really hard. So it's good for me to hear you talk about what it is that connects you, and having it not be money. Because I don't know, some people, my husband would probably say money, but I think it's true. It's the connection piece, and it's knowing that you're adding value. That I think that's a big piece. And I'm not surprised that you were a little bit worried with such a giant as he's, like, at the top of his game, a superstar. I mean, you don't really get bigger than that. But you've continued that realm for him, so that's exciting.
It's been amazing. We just finished our stadium tour. We just finished in Dublin, Ireland, where he sold 400,000 tickets, which is 10% of the population of Ireland. I said, Garth, if we can go back to America and do that, it'd be about 35 million people. But I don't think we could do that here. But
do you have any Austin dates coming up? I'd be in.
No, we just announced we're going to do a residency in Las Vegas, and it's going to be at Caesar's Palace for the next year. And
all right, I see a PDR event at Caesar's Palace somewhere in our future. So.
You can guarantee that there'll be Garth during the PBR in Vegas. I can tell you that right now.
Amazing. I love this. So what's your favorite Garth Brooks song then?
My favorite of all time is The Dance. I mean, the dance to me, I think songs, for everyone, they're a little bit different, but I resonate with The Dance. It's just such a special song. Everyone that I've lost in my life, I always try to think about during that song, and it's just to me my favorite. Probably the cut that nobody's ever has heard very much. That's not been a single for him would have been probably A New Way to Fly. Mm-hmm. Beautiful song, but most people haven't heard that one. That's on one of his albums. Amazing.
So when you look back on your career, what do you think your do you see any themes?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think I read a book one time when I was at PBR. It was Rick Pitino's, and he said something in there that's resonated with me so much that I went back to my HR person right there and said, we're changing our whole philosophy on how we hire. And he goes, what are we doing? I go, we're only hiring PhDs. And I just read about it. He goes, PhDs? I go, yes, it stands for passion, hunger, and drive.
I love it.
And so that's how I said, by God, that's how I'm going to live my life. I'm going to be passionate. I'm going to be hungry, and I'm going to have a drive for whatever I do in life. And if I don't have that, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to make sure whatever I do in my life is about what I love to do. And it's made me a much happier person. I can tell you that.
That's awesome. Do you think the passion, hunger, and drive, is that also what gives back to you then? What refuels you?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. People say, oh, I need a vacation. Oh, I'm exhausted. Yeah, everybody needs to take a step back and just get their energy back. But I love what I do so much. It's like I don't want to take breaks. I love what I do, but I do know it's good for the soul to take that step back and just recharge your batteries and take that deep breath. And and you need family time. If I have one regret in my life, I was traveling so heavy, I didn't get to spend so much time with my family. I'm so close with all my family. I have 2 daughters. I'm a new grandpa today.
Congratulations! It's amazing.
Thank you. Little girl, 6 pounds. This morning about 9:30 this morning. So yeah, pretty excited about that.
Congratulations.
Headed to Idaho for Thanksgiving now.
What's her name?
Her name's Elizabeth.
Oh, well, congratulations to you and the whole family. That's amazing. Good for you. So when you talk to your superstars like Garth Brooks and your cowboys and any race car drivers, or versus your family and your daughters and your granddaughters, would you have different advice for how to refuel and how to look after yourself?
No, my daughters call me all the time and they're like, Dad, they'll have an issue. And it's so fun to be able to coach them on how they are going to deal with this issue, on how I made mistakes on doing something the same. The great thing about the PBR was we were very young and we took chances. These are risk takers, and that's how they wanted you to live. So if a bull rider is a risk taker, I'm going to be a risk taker as their CEO. And we took a lot of risk in our growing, but I look back on it and I'm like, I'm so thankful I did it. But I did make a lot of mistakes, but you learn from every mistake and you grow from every mistake. And if you do it right, we were just talking about this last night at dinner, on how many mistakes that you made in your life that actually you came to that crossroad and you end up having to go a different direction, but it became a stronger company for that. So it's been fun to coach my kids and give them advice on which way I would tell them to which way to go on that when they hit that crossroad.
So taking risks and not being scared of the failure, or at least not being stopped by failure, the fear of failure, is kind of a key piece.
The more you can push fear to the back of your mind and just stay focused and look forward. That's what I tell my kids. Mm-hmm. And be kind to people. My daughter runs a hotel, a little tiny hotel called Nob Hill in Sun Valley, and she deals with a lot of people. And she'll call me and she's like, "Oh, Dad, I want to get." I'm like, "Honey, you've got to take the high road every time. I promise you, never burn bridges." And and it's just been fun to help them and coach them along the way. But I'm a big believer that you can't live on fear. You gotta push it behind and work through it.
Fear, interestingly, though, I think can be also a really important emotion, in the sense that, not only does it keep us safe, but it also makes us more aware and alert. And I think of it always as if I'm going to a surgeon and I'm about to be cut open, I hope he's got a little bit of fear. He's not slashing me open, I hope there's a little bit of fear there. So I think, having that kind of to keep us alert and aware, I think is also really important. And not completely disregarding it or putting it away. I think using it and dancing with it, so to speak.
Yeah, I definitely think. Fear is never as much as you want to push it. There's always going to be fear, but and how everyone deals with it differently. But I can, it's like when you get the butterflies. A football player once told me, Rich Saul was his name. He says, I said, how did you deal with, he was a pro football player. And I said, how do you deal with those butterflies you get before a game? And he goes, I always thought that those butterflies were, I had them in a pattern, and we were going to go out there and kick some serious butt. And it's funny how people talk about it and deal with their issues. But I'm like, whenever I got them again, I'm like, all right, we're organized, we're ready. And so that's how,
That's great. No, that's awesome. Last question for me. Actually, there's two more questions. One is, was there a teacher that was super instrumental in your life and influential in your life?
A lot. Many. Mrs. Lewis, Dr. Lansing, Mrs. Benway, Dr. Van. I could name, we all probably could name every one of our teachers, but I had some very, very good ones. And I think Dr. Lansing was probably the most influential. I came from a little tiny town of 500 people. So we had 18 kids in our class from kindergarten to 8th grade. And Dr. Lansing was our 6th grade and our 8th grade teacher. Out of those 18 kids, 16 kids graduated from very, very good universities. Everything from Stanford, Caltech, amazing universities. And I think if you put us all in the room, I think every one of us would give Dr. Lansing a tremendous amount of gratitude for what he did for us. And it's you don't forget those. And he was very, very strict, but he was always very positive, and he always was very goal oriented to us and wanted us to push for our goals. And some of our assignments, that's what he did. And I never forgot that. I think it was some great learning years.
Amazing. And I will tell everybody else that when I asked Randy if he would come and speak, he didn't hesitate for a second. He was like, teachers, absolutely, I'm going to support them. So
thank you all for what you do.
Yeah, exactly. So just bringing this full circle, I will open it up to questions if anyone has any questions. So just please just put your hand up or interrupt anytime. But I just want to ask one final question from me, which was just bringing it all full circle. I'm sure even in your current life, there are sort of moments where you're struggling to hold on, even for those 8 seconds, right? So what do you do when you're struggling? What advice would you give to people in terms of just holding on and getting through something when it's so tough?
Again, I think everyone's a little different, but I always like to take a step back and pray a little and just understand who I am. And just sometimes that's when I go into more of a solitude to just heavy thinking internally, just with me, whether it's in the gym and just working through it. But I'm a very private person. I know other people that want to work through it with other friends, but that's how I do it.
I think, that's why I always ask, because I think it's one of those things that for every person, it's so different. For me, it's always a thing where I like to remind myself that even this will change. Even the really tough times, if you can just hold on and get through it, sometimes, there is an upswing. Anything that's down must come up, and so on and so forth.
There's always a rainbow at the end of that rainstorm.
Exactly. But I wanted to open it up. Does anyone else have any questions for Randy? And, any queries at all, please just chime on in. Promise he's very nice. No questions? All right, well, I'm going to ask one more then. Randy, what are the chances that we can give away one ticket to a show of Garth?
Yes. You bet.
Good. Well, we'll have to figure out how to give away some just one. Well, maybe it's 2 tickets.
Oh, we got to do 2 tickets. You can't do 1 ticket.
You can't go by yourself. But to one person, it will give 2 tickets away too. That would be amazing.
All right, we'll do that.
Okay, so I totally put you on the spot there. Sorry.
Absolutely not. I saw that. I saw someone ask that during it, and I'm like, all right, definitely.
Okay, good. Laurie said your story is very inspiring, so that's nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. You can totally sign off, and we're going to do our breakouts in a minute. But again, I really appreciate your time. You're a rock star, and you're fabulous.
And thank you all for what you do, because it's right now, being a teacher in these times with our society and our culture changing so much. I think it's, social media, there's so many impactful influences in these kids' lives that aren't for the better. And I think that teachers are, underthanked, and I can't thank you enough. So I sure appreciate everything you do.
Yeah, no, thank you. There was actually one, Leolita asked, what advice would you tell teachers? What advice would you tell teachers you wish we knew? Do you want to, I guess, what advice would you give to teachers that you?
I think that positive reinforcement was the most important thing. When you look back, and I talked about those teachers that I took from it, it just helped me grow. I don't know if that's the right answer. I don't know if there could be a right answer, but I know that
right or wrong.
it was definitely helpful in my life. I had teachers that were the other way, and it drove me down a little bit. It pushed me. I didn't feel as confident. I didn't want to go to that class. I just didn't feel smart sometimes when I'd go to that class. But if anybody would just give me just a little bit of encouragement and positive reinforcement, even when I was probably at the back of the class, I always seemed to work harder. And so I don't know. That would be my.
Okay, amazing. And then Miss Vincent also asked, what's your secret for work-home life balance?
That's one I told you I probably failed at.
Now I think you've got a really good balance.
Now. I'm doing a great. Garth demands it. Garth wants you with your family. We do not have one bus on our tour. We had 49 semis on our tour, not one bus. And he wants everyone flying home with their families. So between every show, every weekend, he wants you taking a plane home and being with your family and coming back. So no one has to live on the road like most tours. And that was, so today is much better, where you get to spend as much time as you want with the family, which makes it really, really good. And Garth is he really drives that one home with everyone.
That's amazing. That's good. And Sarah Baker, happy birthday. She has the same birthday. Today is her birthday. It's the same as your granddaughter. So Sarah.
Happy birthday, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to let you sign off, I think. Desiree Enos actually says, I'm also from Oklahoma, and I'm always proud of Garth Brooks, who is truly a nice in person. So there you go. You can pass it on to Garth. So.
I sure will. All right. Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and love to the family. And congratulations again on your baby granddaughter.
All right. Thanks so much.
Everyone else, we're going to just, the next step for us is to go into breakout rooms. And as always, just 1 minute, introduce yourself, and because you may not have met everyone in those groups before. And then what's the biggest aha moment from tonight? And then what is a strategy that you heard today or that you thought of today that you could use in your real life? And then we're going to share that back on Padlet. Andy is going to put you guys into breakouts, and he's also going to send you guys the link to the Padlets. And then we're going to share that back to the entire community. He's put it in the chat now if you guys want to click on that in the chat. And it might be helpful for you guys just have one scribe and then maybe one facilitator or timekeeper that just makes sure that everyone gets a turn. And I think it's about like 2 minutes or so that each of you guys should get. 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Hopefully that's enough. And I'm sorry we kind of ran over. I'm really bad when I'm talking to fabulous people. So, Andy, can we put people into breakouts, please? I'm going to let you guys go. We're going to share this back. But this is all supposed to be helpful for you guys to sort of, just get you guys thinking, hopefully refuel you guys a little bit. what I'd love you guys to think about is what is it exactly that how do you optimize your refuel? Because for him, it was this sort of PhD, it was this connection and so on and so forth. But it's also good for us to try different things. And we're actually going to have our very first ever in-person event in Austin. Next, we're going to come to New York and the East Coast and Queensboro and Rhode Island, and maybe Philadelphia. But the first one is going to be an axe throwing party. So if anyone has a free Friday night on December 2nd, come and join us at this axe throwing party in Austin. And there will be many, many more events for you guys. We just want to bring you guys together, and we'll let you know about those other events, and there'll be all sorts of different types of things. We'll poll you guys beforehand to make sure. There's always going to be a happy hour probably attached to it, just because we like to be happy. But I'm going to love you and leave you guys. Have a wonderful evening. And on this note, here's my favorite song by Garth Brooks.
Last one to show.
It's the Friends of My Braces. I'm sure you guys know this, right? It's the only Garth Brooks song that I love, but it's. And yes, I'm coming to Maine. I'll come to Maine if you want me. Good night, guys. Bye. Bye, guys.